Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. Always a new day, always a great show, always a great guest I have. And today's topic is, again, one of my favorite discussions because it's about life. And I think we all live in this world, and life is important to us. And there's so many things that happen in life, good, bad, ugly, and it's how we deal with it and so on and so forth. But my guest today is going to literally help us, maybe live big, bold, and brave, and really maybe transform actually our lives, hopefully. And that's what he does. And he's also a writer, but his story began, with a lot of tragic stuff that most of us watching and listening right now, if you were to think about it, you're probably like, wow, I would not want to be in his shoes. And so I would not say anything more than that. I want to introduce my guest, Clint Hatton. Clint, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thank you, Hurricane. I appreciate it, man.
No, my pleasure, dude. And, like I said, I mean, it's a great topic for everybody. And I think it's an important topic because life throws in lefts and rights and swings and,
it does.
You are never prepared for what's next, right? And you could, there are ways, but you have to be open-minded about it. So it's a tough place. Yeah. But so Clint, before we get into all the book and the work and all the good stuff, let's go back to, because your story is impressive, man. It's just amazing. And I have to tell you, man, I did mention this to you just for our audiences. I don't know how to even place it, and your attitude about it, your smile. You're the man. I just have to say that. Yeah. And now people's like, what is he talking about, this dude here right now?
Right. Now, it better be good now, right?
It better be good. It is good. It is good. Trust me, folks. Once you hear this whole thing, you'll be like, oh my God, amazing. All right. So again, resilience, right? Having the ability to live through life and the worst scenarios. And we're gonna talk worst case scenario here. So so Clint, all yours, man.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. It's funny. The reason I'm partly laughing too, other than just you're so infectious, man. I knew we were going to have fun the minute we turned on the screens here. We could tell. But, it's funny because I actually had kind of stuck to the story we're going to get into when I first got into podcast guesting, mostly just because I felt like it was the most fresh and the most relevant. And then I actually had another host that so before we get into that, I want to find out more about you. So she started to dig into my origin story. And that's why I started to change my bio and put that stuff out there. Because the funny thing is, and I'm going to give it to you guys in a nutshell here, but when I look at it on paper, it does look like a lot of stuff. But it didn't feel that way going through life, because I think for all of us, life is a journey and we have some victories. We have some great things happen. But then in the midst of that, too, you get gut punches, like you said earlier. And so I don't feel special or I look at some other people's lives and I think, man, I can't believe what they've been through. But to your point and to answer, the initial call here to action, I grew up in Southern California, sunny Southern California. I grew up an athlete, had a lot of fun, really, in my mind, had a great childhood. But then about 11, 12 years old, the first gut punch came and it turned things upside down pretty fast. My parents have been married over 25 years. They got married very, very young, and I came very, very late. And so, I grew up assuming everything was totally stable. I'd see them fight and stuff like that, but you're a kid. And ultimately, my dad ended up having an affair on my mom. And he didn't just have an affair. He ended up moving out and moved in with his girlfriend. And then she had a son that was about 2 years older than me, too, which was weird. a really weird experience for me. I actually have an older brother, Hurricane, but he's about 8 years older. So when this all occurred, he had already moved away out on his own, several hundred miles away. So what ended up happening is my mom didn't handle that very well, and I look back and, have a lot of compassion for it. She got married at 16, right? Nobody does that anymore, right? But she got married at 16, the only, man she knew. And so she started drinking really heavy. She ultimately ended up having suicidal ideation. And so this whole scene went on for about 2 years. And during that time, she tried committing suicide multiple times. Probably the scariest for me was there was 2 times where I almost got taken out with her. One time we were in a car and she had been drinking and she decided that she was just going to end it all for both of us. And we literally spun out on this little 2-lane highway going about 65 miles an hour. And this was a little 2-lane highway in Southern California where I grew up that wasn't uncommon to have some pretty serious accidents and fatalities. And, so on one hand, it was scary as all get out. On another hand, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I lived through this, And then sometime later, my dad had actually come to pick me up and take me for the night because her and I were having this big fight. And we got a block away and heard a gunshot, So we go running back to the house and ended up finding her in my closet. And it was just a scary scene. We were able to get the gun away from her. Thank goodness, nothing actually happened beyond that, but had some pretty traumatic experiences, out of that. And so ultimately, the reason why I think that's important is because I ended up choosing some pretty negative coping mechanisms coming out of that and didn't even realize it. Hurricane, I'm 12, 13 years old. Again, I am an athlete, so that's keeping me on the straight and narrow is probably not the right way to say it, but at least slightly crooked, right? But I began to just abuse drugs and alcohol pretty hard at that young age. And it never really stopped, even into my 19, 20 years old. Actually, I got into the car business after I had my second catastrophic knee injury. First one happened my senior year of baseball, and then I had another one happen my sophomore year of junior college football. Both those sports I was trying to, get a scholarship and go somewhere. And so after the second one happened, I was a little lost, to be honest. School, I wish I could say now that school was the priority and football was just secondary, but it wasn't. It was the other way around. So after that second catastrophic knee injury, my career was over and I got in the car business. Well, that sounds like, okay, maybe you got something good going on, but that's where I was introduced to meth. And so, for the next 9 years, among other things, abused meth for, an extended period of time, and not 9 years straight, like, day in and day out, but did a lot of it over the course. I had multiple times where we would literally be off. Anybody that's listening to this that's familiar with the car business, you typically work very long hours. And so once a month, we'd get a 3-day weekend. And it wasn't uncommon for us to literally stay up the entire 3 days, not even go to sleep and just do meth and party. And, so it was pretty intense. But ultimately what happened, Hurricane, and I think this was kind of the beginning of me being able to handle some of these gut punches in life in a much healthier way. Ultimately what happened is I was also in a failed marriage. So let's just add to the list, right? Which at this point, I've given you no reason to think I should have been married, right? So that already was a problem. So we were married during this time and both of us were total train wrecks. My last time using meth, we actually did it together. And I remember waking up the next day and I just remember thinking, I'm just sick of this. I don't want this to be a part of my life. And so I just made it I call them courageous decisions now, but I just made a decision. I'm like, I'm done with this. This is never going to happen again. And I quit cold turkey and that was the end of it and never look back. That's been 30 years or whatever it's been now. So I'd shown some signs of being able to make some good decisions, but ultimately about a year or so after that, I was involved in this direct marketing company. It was like a nutritional company. And I know you're into health too. We're both into health. So this was kind of the beginning of me really starting to take seriously what I put in my body. So I got involved with this health company. Go ahead. Stop me, please.
I said Herbalife.
Oh, no. It's called Symmetry, but very similar. very
because
similar.
that I think age wise that I just aged a little bit.
Yeah.
I timed it, and Herbalife just came up in around the same time. So I'm assuming that would have been it. But you're right. I never heard of them actually.
Yeah, and funny enough, my brother actually had done Herbalife for a little while, a few years prior to this, so I was very familiar with Herbalife. But ultimately, I got involved just because I had some friends in it, and it was a new company. It was kind of the promise of you're getting in the ground floor. So what happened though is two things happened during that time, and I think this is one of the things I'm going to love to talk to you about and get your take on some of this stuff. For the first time in my life, because of the workshops and the seminars and some of the growth. We did workshops, we did weekends, we did all these different things to help people grow personally. And my mentors, I never had mentors before. I had mentors that were speaking into my life and encouraged me that I could be more than what I'd proven to be before. And, so my mindset began to change. And then for me, there was another pretty radical thing that happened around that time. My upline just happened to be a Christian. For your listeners, I'll just get this out of the way. I was a pastor for 17 years. Faith has been a big part of my life, but it started then. I actually went to a church service because I knew there was something different about them. Didn't know what. My only reason I even went. This is the, I shouldn't say it this way probably, but the honest to God truth is that they had adversity too. Yeah, why not? It sounds right. They had adversity too. But one thing I noticed is they didn't react the way I did. A lot of times I would react and go into this tailspin emotionally and be really angry or, so upset I can't even function. And I noticed that they seem to always have what I would just call peace now. So I went to this church service and ended up deciding, I'm going to start this relationship with God. So both those two things kind of happened around the same time. And that's really what began to send me on a path of especially being really interested in growing personally. Because even though that's what I do now, I've been doing it for a long time, I'm still ravenous to grow myself. We're never done. I just can't hardly wait to dig my teeth into the next thing that might be able to help me, incrementally grow even a little bit further.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
I had to stretch those, right? Well, first of all, by the way, folks, we haven't even hit the punchlines, right? I mean, there's more.
There's more.
It's gonna get heavier, but let's talk about all this. I guess the preface of the discussion, all the stuff that you've covered. First of all, I mean, people are watching and listening right now. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people are going through this. The dilemmas you've gone through, right? And it's just part of life. It's becoming more and more common. I mean, talking about relationship, divorce rates, and kids, being in that mix. And your mom was definitely married too early, too young, and again, that was devastating. But you at that young age going through that experience, which a lot of people today might be going through, it's always. I mean, it's easy for you to become what do you call it? An attraction to all these extracurricular activities,
sure.
And it's very easy for some of those predators, I guess, that to see that, hey, you're a quick one. We can get you in the realm of this world, and then you get sucked into this literally vacuum of bad stuff at a young. And again, you were in school, you did your thing, but again, you were a sport and athlete, and. You got hurt. That's the other part. I mean, physically, that can be challenging as well. So all these
tough, man. That was tough. Yeah,
it is. And by the way, that age, you think you're you're invisible. You think that the world owes you. I mean, that's all of us, right? That's just how it is. I mean, I have a couple of teenagers, and they think that they know it all and they know everything, right? But that's just how it is. I've been there. Everybody's watching, listening. They probably at a certain point in their life felt the same way, and but then. You're right. You said a key word. You did not have a mentor before. You don't have that. And eventually, so that's the other thing. I mean, you were engaged with the group of people that actually encourage some of the bad stuff. And that's always something that we would tell people is you got to pick, your entourage correctly, because that's what's going to make you. If you, and we just had a show about the 1 of 5. Tell me who you were with. Right. And so forth. So it's a very similar concept. It applies all the time to all of us. If you frequent the wrong crowd, then, you're probably going to get mixed in with, the wrong stuff. Just what it is. if you do the right thing by going with maybe, and the question is like, who is right, who is wrong, what is right, what is wrong? How do you identify? At that time, it sounded all party time. It was all fun. We all gone through that, like it's college days, it's fun days. I'm young, I'm excited. And I see people today in that age and they like full of life, right? But they don't know where they get in, and sometimes one small step to the wrong path, and to your point, you deviate, and it's a crooked line. But then that line can just deviate so much, it's over, right? But you went, so you did that. Now you got into the world of business. And then you got yourself into, finally like a corporate structure where there is levers, levels, and you have the ability to actually look up to things and learn different things and start now being part of a system that is a little different, right? So that was good. And then you decided to find, the path of God, which is, that's usually an easy way and a better way to control all that, because and by the way, in the church system or any faith system, you tend to get straight. I mean, it's, because your relationship gets better, and amazingly, I mean, you actually went pastor, so you went full in.
I did. Yeah, I did. Eventually that would happen.
Well, I mean, again, listen, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, but that was part of, your system. I mean, that was kind of like your solution between being mentored into the business world and having a faith, something higher, of authority to cling to actually be part of, and a system, because that's what it is. It's a system and a brotherhood, sisterhood, so you become part of a different family, and your bad habits tend to disappear that way, because you have the, I guess, faith, right? It becomes strength, and so on and so forth, and then the rest of it. Now you find it as a passion, and to go to pastor, I mean, that's another thing. Not only it was for you, now you're doing it for others. You're preaching to others, right? And so, about 17 years is a pretty long run.
it was a few minutes. It was a few minutes. Yeah. As you're saying that too, I want to point something out really quick that I think is really important for not just my story, but what a lot of different people go through. My parents did reconcile. That whole thing lasted about 2 years. And so they ended up being married for 65 years. They both passed away about 8 years ago, so they're no longer with me now. But the reason I bring that up is, so I had my parents during that time, but I think they felt really guilty, frankly, over some of this, because I just gave you guys a couple, bad things that happened, but there were way more. There were some just really ugly scenes. And so they never held me accountable to anything. They let me kind of do whatever I want to do, and that's how I took my life. And so, but the interesting thing is even in those really heavy drug days, I always wanted to help people. That was one thing I always wanted to do. Now, I didn't realize so much at the time. I didn't necessarily have the wisdom to help people in the right way. But ultimately, I think that's what led me to pursue getting into ministry and ultimately becoming a pastor, because it gave me a clear path of a way that I could, form a real intentional way to help people.
Well, you had the core, the values were there.
Right.
Again, you got a little bit of a bump, basically. And again, first of all, thank you for bringing that, because that's a big piece of the information here, is that your parent did reconcile, which again, that's positive. I tend to always try to look for positivity, and that is positive as much as it is. Listen, things happen in life, right? People make mistakes. They got back and they stayed married for the longest time, right? So why not?
Yeah, they did.
So that was good. But in a way, that kind of, because as you said, that guilt, whatever it was, did create a little bit of like, hey, you're the man, you do your thing, and just, and so they were less controlling, less stuff. But your person, your inner self, was still you still had a good core, and that's, if you have that, that's actually like your moral compass, right? And that change. Right. That, if someone has that, no matter what, you deviate and you come back. Some people sometimes lose that, period, and that's the challenge, right? But so hopefully, everybody's watching, listening, just dig in. It's always there. It's just a matter of, you got to find it, right? And sometimes the elements guide you to it. You never. Everything happens for a reason. There's no such coincidence in life. Things happen. And there are circumstances, and sometimes we make the wrong decisions, but sometimes you get guided back. And so, listen, it happened, but you did, wanted to help, and you help people. I'm sure in the 17 years of ministry, you've delivered sermons, you've changed other people's life, probably other people that were going through the same or worse. Right. And you got them back into track, and so on and so forth, which is awesome to hear. Now, that's up to that point. Now, there was more to your story, and
Right.
that's what guided you to what you do today as work. Now, I believe the next phase was inflicting your immediate family, now your personal family, not your parents, now you
Right.
as a father. So let's talk about that for a minute, because
Yeah.
this is where the heavy stuff, at least for me as a father, that's that knocked me out when I read about that stuff. That's tough.
For sure. No, for sure. And there's a few events that happened along the way that I think you said it really well earlier, that nothing fully prepares for where we're about to go with my story. But there were some things that as a family unit, the way we functioned, we had to get through some stuff that I do think ultimately did help service as a family. And just quickly, I did get the opportunity to remarry, and we've been married over 20 years now. Two of our boys, including my oldest son, Gabriel, who we'll talk about in a second, were born prematurely, really prematurely. My youngest, Liam, was born at 1 pound, 14 ounces, 3 months early. This was during H1N1 virus. We didn't know if he was going to make it, all this stuff. So we had been through, as a family unit, some gut punches, some tough things, that I think as a family helped us fight together, which ultimately, where we're going to go now, I think made a big difference for me and my bride and my two boys. And so you already know I have 3 boys. What happened was Gabriel was a pilot at 16 years old. Very unusual. There's not a lot of those out there. But he was just adamantly certain from about 8 years old that he wanted to become a pilot. He actually went up in a little aircraft with his uncle Danny, got the bug, and that was it, man. And he locked in on it. And so at 16, he started actually flying with the flight instructor. He soloed before he had a driver's license, which was pretty crazy. And at 17, he reached his goal of becoming a licensed pilot. That was his first dream. And so, here I was watching him live this courageous life and really just go for it. And he was just so much fun to watch, and we all enjoyed his journey. Ultimately, where that led, though, was, when you become a new pilot, and this isn't because of age, just any new pilot, it's all about the hours. You got to fly as much as you can. And he wanted to become a commercial pilot. So that means you need to get to 1,500 hours just as soon as you can before you can take that next step. So he was flying all the time. And one afternoon, September 23rd of 2019, he had a dear friend of his that they just graduated that summer, actually. They graduated from high school that summer. She needed to go to the University of Arkansas to get back to school. And of course, that's what he loved to do, was help friends and get his hours. So he flew her up there. He dropped her off safely. Thank God for that. And unfortunately for us, on the return trip, he ended up running into an unexpected weather system going through a little mountainous region outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas. And he flew into the side of a mountain and he lost his life. And so, hurricane, that's the gut punch of all gut punches. It's the absolute worst nightmare as a parent. There's nothing else you can think of that's any worse than that. And the crazy thing is that it also came at a time when we just felt like, gosh, we finally have made it. Life was going good. His dreams were, just unfolding right before his eyes. So many opportunities. Our other 2 boys were thriving as well. They were 9 and 14 at that time. And it just really came at a point where, even for our faith, if I could say this, we didn't have the money. We were pastors during that time. We didn't have the money for him to go to flight school. Anybody that's familiar with that knows it's tens of thousands of dollars. Yet we ended up having this opportunity through this club right here in the town where we live in, where a gentleman created this club for teenagers and literally had everything donated to them. The flight instructors donated their time. He taught them how to work on planes, work on the engines, do oil changes, do all this stuff. They had to just give sweat equity. But if they worked hard, he allowed them to fly. And that's ultimately how he was able to achieve his dream of getting the license. So life is going great. And then everything just, no pun intended, literally everything just came crashing down on us. And so, as you said earlier, man, there's no way you can prepare for that. Literally it was like 4:00 in the afternoon. Hey, Dad, see you later. I hear the garage door shut. And at 8:15, we get a call, and it's his mentor, and he tracked his pilots on a little iPad device. He went down. We don't know exactly where he is, and I won't take you guys through the whole story because it was a long, hellish night, but ultimately there was some misinformation. At one point we thought he was gone, and then we thought maybe he might be alive. And then ultimately at about 3:30 in the morning is when we found out that he was gone for sure. It turned out they were just waiting for the coroner to put his stamp on a piece of paper, quite literally. And so, our younger boys, they slept through the night. Hurricane. We didn't want to wake them up because we didn't know where the story was going to go. So we just let them sleep and waited. And so that next morning when they got up, which was about 7:30, I was forced with what I call the impossible conversation. And I'm going to be really candid with you. I had no idea what in the hell I was going to say. We had all night, we had cried. We had just held each other. We just went through this emotional ride that's just hard to describe unless you've been through it. And then you've got to turn around and somehow tell his little brothers that looked up to him, because he was like the consummate big brother. He was bigger than life, and tell them what happened. And I honestly don't remember those words. Couldn't even tell you. What I can tell you was after their response, which was exactly what you would expect, I knew we needed a compass. I think you used the word compass earlier in a different context. Yep. I love that you said that, because that's what the moment needed. I knew, here's what I did know, Hurricane. The 17 years of pastoring did help prepare me in this way. It didn't help me with the pain, because the pain still this day, very real.
The acceptance of
it, absolutely. But what did help me is I had helped or been involved in many people's lives over the years that had suffered a tragic loss. And what I had seen in some cases actually saw where people coped in some really healthy ways. Unfortunately, I also saw the opposite. And so I was at least aware that if we didn't set a compass, that things could go wonky on us really fast as a family, And so ultimately, this is how Big Bold Brave came to life. I looked at him and I said, boys, we have two choices. We can choose to focus on Gabriel's death the rest of our lives. We can focus on the tragedy of it and all the things that we're going to miss and not get to experience with him. And if that's all we ever think about, we are going to be shadows of who we were created to be. We're not going to live the lives that we were meant to live. And we're going to be trapped in this tragedy. I said, or we have a second choice, and that is that we can choose life. And what I meant by that was simply, we talked about how he lived, right? Super courageous to do what he did to become a pilot. He taught himself guitar and actually could play really well. He was an amazing photographer, got some incredible opportunities with that. I, to this day, actually have probably thousands of photos that I'm so grateful to have. He just attacked life. And I said, so boys, that's how we're going to live. We're going to live like your brother, and that's how we're going to honor him, and we're going to do it together. And so we made a pact that morning, and that kind of began our new journey.
Oh, man. It's one thing to read about it, and hear it from you is just another one. I mean, and by the way, I know it's been a few years, but it's never going to be that far behind. It's always raw. I mean, again, like I said, as a parent, that moment that you've gone through is the moment that we all fear. And, I have, a 26-year-old, I have an 18 and a 17. And, you try to think that everything's peachy, but right. You never know. And of course you try not to think about the worst case scenario, but it is happening all the time, every time. I mean, right. I've seen it. I've lost friends who are younger, when I was a kid, and so their parents went through the suffering. So it's very difficult. And as a parent, you wish and hope that it never happens, and it goes through the traditional way. We grow older, and everybody's happy. You're a grandparent, blah blah blah, and life goes on. But again, life is, and there's so much stuff that happens that you cannot really plan for. This is definitely one of them. And again, I mean, you hear people get sick, and it's one thing, but like to your point, he goes up and he doesn't come back. That's another. That's right. I mean, there's different levels, but it doesn't matter. It's the same
End
outcome.
result's the same. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you got people who lose their kids to military. They go, deploy,
right.
and they come back in a casket, or they don't even come back. It is always, and I mean, we see it in the movies. They walk in, they knock on your door. Hey, we're bringing the bad news, right? And
right,
and everybody is like, you feel that. I mean, every time they leave, you don't know if they're coming back. But that's different, right? At least you know what you signed up for. In this case, you could not possibly see it happen. And you said he was full of life and energy, and the future was his, and
right.
and you had no reason to believe otherwise. Plus, again, I have to say, you being in the ministry and as pastors, you have faith, you have that open mind and positivity, and you go with God and all this stuff. So you would not think stuff, but I do, and I love what you said, that because of what you did, you've seen the good and the bad, the worst and the better, outcomes of families who face, trials and tribulation in this particular manner. But even that, right? Because you have at least to your point, a compass, a lookout, like you have a sampler in front of you, like you've had a few cases where if we go this way, this is what's going to happen. If we go this way, this is what's going to happen. But I still believe that if it wasn't about your fate, you and your wife and your family, that could have been even much harder. Because the fact is, we all know the good and the bad, but unless you have a strong level of faith, it is not going to be easy. It's not. I mean, just thinking about it, it makes it difficult. I'm not experiencing it. I'm just thinking about it with you, and I'm feeling it, right? So, and I'm assuming that's exactly what transcends right now to anybody that's watching. At least, if you're not a parent right now, you're not going to feel this. But if you're a parent, you will know what that feels like. From the moment your kids are born to the to today's moment, you're always going to have those moments where you're afraid, and you have that. We might have some ego. Yeah. It's not. We might have the ego, the pride. We don't show all those sentiments sometimes, but deep inside, they're there. You would not want to hear. I mean, my son broke his arm, and I was overwhelmed. I mean, that's nothing, right? So just think about that, right? This is loss of life, and like to your point, it's difficult, but it looks like that was the moment that triggered a whole new approach for you guys and a whole new path. And the name itself, I mean, it's powerful the way you've put it. Bold, brave, big, bold, brave. I mean, that's it's humongous, right? It's got a big weight to it. And so let's go through that. So now you decided to go this way,
right?
And so what is the actual concept behind it? I mean, I get the source and the reason behind it, right? But now you decided to take this on the road to transform people, to help people, to get through tragedy, to get through life, because again, high risks in life, things happen. Let's say today, I'm going to ask this question: if you, now that you know what happened, if you were to be able to say, I don't want you to fly,
right,
would you have done that?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely not. And I know a lot of people probably think one of two things. They think I might have said the other, right? Or they may think, okay, well, that's easy to say either way, right? Because it's already happened. But here's the reality for us as a parent. This is our perspective on the whole thing. He was living his dream. He was doing the only thing. I mean, he had other hobbies and stuff. I don't mean that he was only flying, but it was his greatest passion, the one thing that he had wanted to do from the time he was young. And so the way we see it, we would be revisionist, and we would have to ignore all of that to go back and say we would have made a different decision. The truth is we made a decision that opened the door for him to potentially live his entire life crushing dream after dream after dream, because after he reached that first goal, man, I'm telling you, there was more I could tell you guys. Doors were opening left and right. We like to say it this way: the answer would still be yes, because we loved him. Just that simple.
First of all, I believe you, and because you came to terms what happened, but you wouldn't have had it any other way, because that was him, and that was the decision that you made based on a complete set of understanding and believing in it, and that's it. And you can't change what happened, but you can't change it otherwise, even the other way. Now, even if we go back in time, to your point, that was the right decision at the time period.
Yep.
But and that's and I commend you for it, because again, it's difficult, right? Now you started this whole. First of all, you wrote a book, right? So was it the service or the whole I guess coaching that you started, or the book started before the coaching? Which one came first, the egg or the chicken?
That's a great question. Well, really, as a pastor, and I'm saying it this way because depending on what your experience is, whoever's listening to this, what a pastor means, it could be a lot of different things. My role over the course of those 17 years was heavy in mentoring people and coaching people. I was deeply involved in really doing that every day. So the coaching in and of itself wasn't new, right? But what happened, and I'm going to kind of weave this all together because I love the way you're framing all this. Big, Bold, Brave, the phrase actually came out of that first morning, because when we were having this conversation and setting the compass, we ended up getting a phone call because of what had happened. It was a plane crash and it was a 17-year-old pilot. So a couple of news agencies called us. One of those was the Fox Dallas affiliate, and they wanted to do an interview. Now, at first I'm like, hell no, there's no way. I mean, we were a total train wreck. But what happened, and I want everybody listening to this, remember what I said earlier about the conversation I had with my boys and us talking about this life mentality, right? She literally, before the reporter hung up, after me saying no, she said, just give it a little more thought before the day is up, because this is my assignment. I have to do this story. And if I do it without you, I'm only going to be able to report on his death. If you'll do it with me. And she happened to be a person of faith too. So she said, you can tell his story about his life, and you can include faith. You can say whatever you want to say about it. And so I didn't say yes, Hurricane, at that moment. I mean, I was just overwhelmed, honestly. But as a family, we had a meeting shortly after that call and decided that this was our first opportunity, if you will. Came way quicker than we expected, but to put our money where our mouth is in terms of, are we really going to live it out this way? So we did the interview. Now, the interview itself, I'm very sincere, I don't remember any of it. The only reason I can even remember any of it today is because I have the video that she created. She did a 3-minute segment. Yeah, so I can watch it and see what happened, but I have no actual memory of any of it. But interestingly enough, what happened is somewhere in there, I said, he lived his life big, bold, and brave. Don't remember saying it. But what the reporter did that ended up being, I don't think I'm exaggerating, life-changing for us, was she ended up at the very end of the segment, she closed it out with saying, Gabriel's parents want to encourage you to live like Gabriel, big, bold, and brave. And Hurricane, when I heard it back to me, it just had this life on it. Now, I want to point out 2 things really fast. One, everybody listening to this, we didn't do any of this perfectly. We suffered. We still do from time to time. Pain comes in waves, so when I talk about big, bold, brave and some of the stuff we're about to get into, I'm not talking about you're just kind of, puffing your chest up and I'm just going to push through this thing like nothing ever happened. That is not even remotely close to what we're talking about. We're talking about you're going to feel pain. There's new fears that are going to come and attack you and try and keep you from living your life and squashing our other 2 kids' dreams, right? Being afraid that something's going to happen to them. All that stuff came. But what Big, Bold, Brave did was it just gave us this phrase. It was a family mantra at first to recalibrate to when times got tough, because they did get tough. And then ultimately, it was about 2 years later that I actually decided that, hey, it's time. I had talked about doing coaching outside of the church for years and never had the courage to do it. Never had the courage to start a business of my own. And because of the way Gabriel lived, I thought, you know what? I'm a coward. And he was courageous. Anything he wanted to do, he just went for it. And I'm sure he had fear. I know he had fear, but he did it anyway. So I decided I'm going to do it anyway. And so that's why I launched out with the coaching. I started just doing it was on the side, just doing some, side coaching. And then what really happened was 3 months after he passed away is when COVID hit. So for that next 2 years that I'm describing, just like everybody else on this planet, we were trying to not only grieve him, but we were trying to just wrap our minds around the entire world that had gone crazy and been flipped upside down, right? And every human on the planet has suffered in some way, and many lost a loved one, Yep. And so ultimately what happened was I began to look at all the fear. This is not a political statement for me at all. I don't think anybody can make the argument, whether you think things were handled the right way or if you think things were handled the wrong way, that fear was unleashed on our planet unlike anything we've ever faced before. And I just decided, you know what? We've already had the worst thing that we can imagine happening to us as a family. I refuse to live the rest of my life in fear. I'm not going to fear a virus, and that's not to diminish those who lost their loved ones. Please, if you're listening to this right now, know I have extreme compassion for you, and that's an awful loss, and I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry that you had a loss. But the fear factor that has kept so many people crippled in what the pandemic did, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I just really felt like it was time. And I knew I could write a book that would help people that were suffering too, like we had through a really tough loss, because it does, cover some of the grieving process that we went through, but it's not a grieving book. It ultimately helps people face fear and dream again and really begin to take some steps to make courageous choices to accept that you are going to get the gut punches in life, but you're not going to let them stop you. And that's ultimately what Big Bold Brave is all about, Hurricane.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm listening to you, and we do need that in our lives. We need to think big, bold, and brave. And you said it. I mean, fear is our worst enemy in everything.
Absolutely.
And anything in life. By the way, you said it best, because no matter, I'm a huge motivational person and inspiration. It runs through my veins. I always love these things. But believe me, I tell this all the time. Let's do this. Let's make it happen and stuff. But I'm just like everybody else. We have our own hesitation. We have our own down moment. We all have our doubts and everything. But you punch through it. You don't allow that to happen. That's the thing. You keep that mantra, your motto in front of you, like big, bold, brave. I'm going. No matter what. No, you got to keep reminding yourself. No, I got to do this. And that's what gets people ahead sometimes, is the ability to actually a resilience to really be able to go through it regardless of events. And actually, I use that what you just said is that I have to prepare for the worst scenario. And if you always prepare for the worst scenario, then the rest will always be easy. In your case, you already passed the worst case scenario. You had that. I mean, that experience is beyond what people can imagine, right? So if you have that, right, then you are ready for the next level, and nothing else can challenge you. I mean, we get to financial hardship, you can get through it. You get through marriage does reconcile eventually.
Absolutely.
You go through, a job, you don't like, you can change things. Life, you cannot bring back.
That's right.
See, you can live the memory, you can push that, but you can't bring someone back, and that's the thing.
Right.
Like, Gabriel lives through his action. He lives through this process. He lives through changing other people's. Because of him, now many other people are benefiting from your work. And so in a way, that's his legacy.
That's right.
And that's
totally.
And I love what that whole interview with the press person is, that it was really, I mean, it's press journalism 101, but it was really touchy, and it had a meaning, but it meant well, and it did well, because it was the driver, because it is, sometimes we have to see it to believe it. It's one thing that if it's not in front of you, but when like to your point, you said it, it didn't mean anything. It didn't resonate. But when it was in front of you,
that's right.
It clicked, like, wow. And now it became the drive. And you're right. The pandemic did hit, every single corner of this planet. That's right. Millions of losses of lives. And that's just the first strategy. And people lost businesses. People lost other things. Different levels of losses. Obviously, the ultimate sacrifice will be, that part, and which was, super tragic. But you're right. There's a lot of people also that kind of took this as a wake up call, and it is a wake up call for all humanity. Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, know that we don't know what tomorrow holds. We're here, and we got to live the moment. Again, big, bold, brave. I love it. I'm gonna have to use this. you might want to trademark that. You need to trademark it, because it's contagious, right? But really, it's a beautiful line, and it is a powerful, just to listen to it. It's like, yeah, it keeps like, I want to be that, and I think we all kind of want to use that, just as a concept, right? And life needs us to do that, because it is a difficult place. It is not peachy. It's not always like we see it as on social media or in the movies. It's just like having fun every day.
That's right.
It's going to come with a lot of things. I mean, what you have to endure with your family, you're making it very light and shallow right now, as deep as we've talked. I mean, every moment that you spend, you sit down, I'm pretty sure you look at the room, you look at the stuff. I mean, I'm looking at the guitars behind, so I'm assuming those are his.
Yeah, actually, the photo you're looking at, he took that photo. Yeah,
exactly. So those are things that you see every day. So he lives through them with you, but at the same time, you remember sometimes you're like, I wish he was here, and that's just a human nature. We always like, my dad passed, right. And you said your parents passed, and like I'd give anything to have him back, right?
Absolutely,
bring him back, but you do have the memories of that, and you live through that, and sometimes the things that they say are part of our fabric now. They're part of our lives, and we use them. And basically, we carry that with us, and it helps. Now, this helped you cope with it, helped your family cope with it, but you took that, not only that, I mean, you wrote the book, but you also started the coaching and the mentoring, and you've changed lives. I know that you've changed thousands of people's lives.
Yeah.
So, and just in a short-term period. I mean, we're not talking about, a lot of years, a couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
And you've affected a lot of folks positively. And you're still doing, you're doing the podcast, which is the other part. I mean, this reaches thousands of people worldwide. So, this is like a fire that is just spreading, positivity all over the place. Again, legacy. It's something that is super powerful. Now, you, in your mentorship, you talk leadership, you talk about, dreams, you talk about being aware. You cover a lot of big items. So let's go through the list of things that you cover through your system, and then how, obviously, we'll talk about how people can reach out to you to be part of the system, to actually benefit directly from your work, or certainly, obviously, we want them to see where the book is available so they can get that. Sure. So let's talk about some of the things that you do in your methodology and the work that you do with people to get them. And by the way, also, if you can tell us like the type of folks that you help, I mean, individuals, business people, leaders, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, man, where do I start? I think I'm going to say this, I've actually shifted over the last few years of the way I approach people with mentoring and coaching. There was definitely a factor. You used the word legacy. I love that word. There was a factor to suffering this kind of a loss and just, death being in your face, right? Because like you said, we're all aware none of us are getting out of this alive, right? I mean, nobody. So you can be aware of that, but when it happens in such close proximity, it really does get you thinking about death, but even more so life. And so one of the things that I really do a lot of now, whether I'm speaking to a group or whether I'm working with somebody one-on-one, is I like to stop people in their tracks. And I love to have them tell my story or tell them their story first. It's a great place to start, because what I have discovered is a very small percentage of people, I'm curious to see if you've run the same thing, are really, truly living the life that they thought they would. And what I mean by that, I don't even mean... That was my Siri trying to chime in there.
Hey, Siri.
I've never had that happen.
Welcome to the show. AI in action, baby. I love it.
I have never had that happen. I've been like, anyway.
That's good. That's a nice highlight. Siri.
That was hilarious. So the reason why I think that's important is because if we never stop on our tracks long enough to really even think about what the heck am I doing? You talked about what, you can change your job. I looked at all those things, and that's what I challenge people to do before we even go anywhere. Is I have some intake forms and different things I use to have them, take some time and fill it out and think things through and really try to be honest with themselves about where they're at. But ultimately, where we're trying to go with that is your life where you hoped it would be in your relationships, in your finances, in your career? And if it's not, what are you going to do about it? And I know that sounds really elementary, but the truth is most people never take that step. And so most people stay stuck in whatever it is, a crappy marriage, or they just never really have great friendships, or they're in a career that they despise, for 25 years, and get the gold watch and sit in a rocking chair and cuss at the TV for the next 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So I love, in my process, I love just stopping people in their tracks. I like to have them tell me their story first, because it always ends up revealing the deep things. And so then we go to work. Then we go to work with, okay, what do you want it to look like? And so once you can get a little bit of an idea where you want to go, now you can start to get with the nuts and bolts, right? And so you asked me, who works with me. Right now, I've got a pretty wide variety. If I were to tell you, their lives, very different, executive type people. I've got a recent divorcee who've been married for 30 years and got divorced and just didn't know what's my life going to be like with next, pretty wide gamut. But most people can relate to being stuck and the fear that has kept them there. So I spend a lot of time talking about fear. I think you mentioned that. I spend a lot of time unearthing what are the things that have held you back. And what I've discovered, and I want to hear your take on this. I really appreciate your promoting me and giving me an opportunity to talk about what I do, but I love this conversation. I think with a lot of the people that I talk to, if they really could do whatever they wanted and fear was not a factor, most would change their life.
Oh, you're getting me started there, baby.
They would change their life. They would totally change their liff.
But
fear keeps them stuck. What's your experience with that?
Fear and comfortable, and being comfortable. So comfort zone,
sure,
and fear, two worst enemies for us. By the way, I think I love your strategy, which is after you do your assessments, you hold them there, you stop in your track, question things, because we don't do that. I think all of us make the mistake, and I've made the mistake for years, where I would say that I've been challenging myself for many years. I've been trying to retire for the last 20+ years. I've been literally on and off, starting, businesses, go to corporate, keep corporate and business on the side. I've been struggling with that formula, right? Because I know that I cannot just do one, because that will be a dead end. And but I know the most, I guess, factor that affects everyone is the fear of the unknown, the fear of the inability to make ends meet and things like that, because we are so caught up. Sometimes we live a certain lifestyle and you just don't want to stop that lifestyle. You're not willing to downsize. You're not willing to sacrifice. You're not willing to stand for the right things. Like, you have to have that ability. And so those fears are all the reasons why you accept that shitty job, that you accept, the shitty boss, that you accept that, I'm not going to go any further. Or you accept, people stepping all over you. You accept that, I'm cool. I'm doing it. I'm making good money. What's good money? It's funny.
Exactly.
Yeah, I ask question in interviews, like, how much would you like to make in the next 5 years? In years, like, 50. Some people say 100. Like, dude, I just asked you how much would you like to make? If that question was asked to me, actually, it was asked to me 30 years ago, I want to be a billionaire if I can. Right. The sky's the limit to that question. There's no limit. So people already are putting their own limitations of what they want.
Right.
And so therefore, but if you only shoot for 50, that's all the most you can get. I give the example. If I take a baseball, right, and I just aim at my teleprompter right now, right? So the odds is I can hit it, I may miss it, right? Now, if I decide to really, shoot to the other side behind my studio here, right? I'm definitely going to hit this teleprompter. I'm not missing, right? So you aim high, and even if you miss, you're still ahead of the game. So, those are the things. But people sometimes are like, no, I'm good. And that's the other thing, because of all the circumstances. Sometimes it's not you. It's somebody that we had a show the other day. We talked about this. Not sometimes just your comfort. Is the people around you. They're also comfortable, and you're disrupting their comfort zone. And so
that's exactly
they don't, so now it's not you, it's about them. And so you have to, when you have families, one thing, if you're single is another. But you're right. One of the things that kept coming in a lot of discussions I've had in the last almost 4 years now is that people reach a certain point in life and they do regret things they didn't do. And
more
you know
than
what's
anything
funny?
else. Yep.
More than,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, I
Yep.
wish I did this. I wish of that. And here's the thing. Time is going to move fast. I can tell you that. I mean, yesterday I was a kid. Relatively speaking, I don't know where half a century is gone, but it's gone. It's not coming back. I don't know. I know I probably will not live what I've lived already, because I mean, if I did, I would probably not look, or feel good. I mean, I might.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
God is great, and we can have the best, potential, fate, but the fact of the matter, age is part of life, and as you
That's right.
age, things are going to get difficult. It is normal. I already feel the aches, right? So imagine, right? So we know that. Now, have I enjoyed some of my life? I try, and that's the thing. Like, you got to balance life. Work is not always, the objective of life. Like, some people, they just wake up, go,
Right.
move, do, and so on and so forth. Tragedy can happen. What happened? Enjoy your people. Enjoy your family. Enjoy
Yeah,
the people
that's
around
right.
you, because you don't know how much time you have with them.
You don't.
As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, sometimes if you think about it, like, especially if people, for example, who live further away from their parents or their family
That's right.
members, you see them on holidays. 20, that's only 20 holidays in 20 years.
That's right.
If you see
That's
them
right.
holiday to holiday, that's not a lot. That
It's
means you're
not.
going to see people that you love 20 times. So when we start talking about these numbers, it drives you nuts. I mean, like, that's it. That's it. I mean, if you
What you're doing is what we're talking about, though. That's what you're doing. You're slowing things down, and you're taking a real look at it. Nobody says I'm only going to see them 20 times unless you sit down and think about it.
That's right. Well, we don't ask questions because
That's
they're
right.
tough questions. Here's the thing. When you ask the question, it's, again, I love to refer to the Matrix. Sorry, people. That's just one of my favorite things. It's that blue and red pill, right? It's very difficult to know. Knowledge
Yeah.
is actually good, but it can be, it's a blessing, but also it can be a nuisance, because once you know, you can't undo it. You can't unknow. You already know it's over. And so there's nothing you can do about that. You have now to accept where you are, and you have to work around it. Now, some people get in denial, just like, again, the movie Matrix, one of those guys, he decided to go back, right? If you watch the original Matrix, I forgot
right.
the name. Sykes, I think, or I forgot his name. But he really, he's like, just make me someone rich. I want to go back, in the Matrix. I don't want this world, right? But so that's it, because that's the thing. Like, some people like, this is too much work. I was good where I was. I'm just doing my thing day in, day out. My routine is cool. But then, I use this line now. If you don't have a TGIM, as thank God it's Monday every day, then you have a problem, because we look forward to the TGIF business, and then Mondays suck, right? And so we are not happy. If you're not, living your life to the fullest, enjoying what you love, your passion, and we all go through this. Now, someone's saying, like, Hurricane, you're dumb because, you're at 50 now plus, and then now you're talking about this. No, I've been doing this, and I can give you stories. I can give you proof. I have pictures to prove some of the stuff, but that's not the point. The point is, you have to keep debating with it. You have to try. Circumstances are going to make it difficult, but it's yours, to hold the reins and really control to a degree.
Right.
It veers out, you come. It's like a sail, right? The wind pulls it, you turn it. You got to work with it to make it work. Now, sometimes you deviate. You got to follow the current, whatever the case may be, but you can't stop. And you have to add more of the stuff you love. We talked about gym, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We should all, we have a fitness channel. We talk about, fitness and wellness. That's part of your life. Nutrition, part of your life. Having fun, part of your life. Distress yourself. Don't get stressed out about life, being out of shape, for no reasons. These are all the things that we all make mistakes of. I'm guilty as charged to
Absolutely.
a degree, but it's again, questioning, accepting that, okay, so now what? So now what means now I got to take action, and the action has to make, again, we can't be doing the insanity, like doing the same thing, expect different result, right? We got to do something different now to find the new stuff, right? So
That's
we
exactly
got to
right.
do different things, and different things means I got to adopt some stuff. I got to change some stuff. Is it going to be easy? No. Financial is usually the worst part. Is everybody's worried about the financials.
Right.
Well, it's a big globe. You can move out of this whatever you are. If it's expensive here, you go somewhere else. You can do that. If you don't like where you are because it's expensive, find a cheaper place where you're paying too many taxes. Find a place with taxes, or make more money. Sometimes you don't have to downsize. Just make more finances. Figure out another way to make additional dollars. So again, if you think you have an issue, you have solutions. We're just not doing enough research and enough work to actually get solutions. If we're thinking about why not, That's what you're going to find. And if we would think about like how many options we have and the more solutions we have, there's plenty out there. It's really limitless of opportunities, and you can do things. You have way much, solutions out there than you think. But again, it starts with the question. And I love it because here's the thing.
No, it totally does.
People say, this is true story. People live, they go to their retirement, and then now what? They can't even enjoy. And how much? Even if you save, you have $1 million, saved. If your health is failing you, well, you can't enjoy your money.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's you want to do things while you're healthy, and so
that's right.
By the way, at all ages, folks, what doesn't matter if you're in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, a teenager, whatever. Even if you're in the 70s, it doesn't matter. Live your life to the fullest every moment. Yesterday's gone. Don't dwell about it. You can't do anything about it. You did the best. Didn't work out. Start a new chapter, new page. Every day is a new day. You can make things happen. Tomorrow, you plan for tomorrow. Planning is always a great thing. Doesn't mean that, and plan with adjustments, with the ability to have contingencies. You wake up in the morning, you want to go to the beach. It's raining. It's not going to be a good day. Do you go to the beach? You could, but, it may not be the best move. Now, what is next plan? This is a simple example, right? It's up to you how to make the decisions, and you can do these things. And if we apply these rules in life, we change. And again, big, bold, and brave. It takes some guts. It takes some cojones, as we say, to get things done.
It does. But, and I love everything you just said, because we're talking about really at the end of the day, limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And that's why my process is the way it is, because frankly, I used to do an intake where we would go right after the goals, the stuff they think they want, but they would never do the work. And they would never do the work, as you said earlier, because they had these limiting beliefs that were running in the background of their system that they didn't know, that kept stopping them for everything. And so, everything you said is just so dead on. And you also said one thing I want to add really quick for anybody out there who's gone through something like we have too. When you start talking about health and wellness, that has been a huge, huge thing for us too. We were working out somewhat before Gabriel passed away. But after that, we took a little bit of a break. That first 30 days was pretty rough. But after that, we made a really strong, courageous decision together that we are going to take our health into our hands. This is early COVID, and we're going to start working out 6 days a week. We're going to move our butts 6 days a week, and you don't have to become a fitness athlete, but move your butt 6 days a week. We started eating better. I really want to encourage people to take control of what they can control when it comes to their health. That was so dead on, and it bears repeating. It'll help you with everything.
No, and again, by the way, we owe it to ourselves. I mean, what else do you have? I think I read something the other day. You've heard about Jamie Foxx, right? He's been sick, right? He's been out.
Yeah.
And apparently, he was in the middle of a movie, and they used doubles to continue the movie. So, and the moral of the lesson in there was that it doesn't matter. You'll be replaced. You may be missed, but you'll be replaced.
Right.
You give your best shot to any job. Listen, I've been in corporate for many years, and you transit from one company to the other, and like you never exist in that company. Like that's it.
That's right.
I mean, really, you're forgotten very quickly. I mean, some people remember you because the impact you have with them. But the corporation itself, you're irrelevant to them. You're
dead. You're dead to me.
Exactly, you're dead. I mean, exactly right. Your replacement. I mean, if you're in a hospital, you're probably being replaced. I mean, you get 120 days on FMLA anyways, and then if not, you're gone. So I mean, even with laws and everything, that's really what life is about. So if you actually are stuck in that path, it's okay, but just understand what it means, how you can navigate through it, and have a different set of expectations and be prepared for all these other circumstances that happen.
That's right.
But if not, you'll be surprised what's going to hit you, and then you'll be like, "Oops, what happened to me?" Well, what happened? Right. You were not prepared, and that's the thing. In life, you said it, death, right? We're all gonna. Well, that's the only certain thing in life is death, as ironic as it sounds. So that means that's happening. When we don't know, and that's a good thing because we'll be crazy if we knew. But but so live today as you're gonna live forever, and tomorrow is not here yet. And you can prepare for the hereafter if you want. That's a great thing. There's do good things, do good deeds, have a good relation with people, don't hurt people, don't do bad. That's all good. I mean, talking to you as a pastor, but you know what I mean. So the fact is, you can balance life between here and there. But today is a good moment. Enjoy. You have, like, for example, in your case, you have your kids now, right? I'm sure you cherish every moment with them.
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing. You don't know what it means. And you want them to also see that now they see it. Like, for example, if I talk about my kids, maybe they don't spend as much time with me because they haven't experienced loss yet.
Right.
You see, like I would literally, I moved out of, Morocco a long time ago, and my dad stayed there. So for over 10 years, I haven't seen him. And so eventually I was seeing him maybe once every 2 years, and then he died eventually. So I lost years of being with him. And, there's nothing that's going to bring those times. I have few photos with him that I have to date. Right. And that's actually something that's in my mind,
sure.
But there's nothing I can do about it. It happened. Right. But like I try to teach it to my kids, guys, you never know how much you have together. Because one day you wake up, I'm not here. One day someone cannot be here. With your parents, if you have them, enjoy them. Your best friends, enjoy them, because you don't know. Like, you could lose your best friend on a split second. And by the way, they could lose you.
That's right.
No one knows, all these.
Nobody
and these
knows.
are facts of life. So if you prepare to these things, you have a better place to, you have a better place to start. Now, again, I try to engage, on my side with you on how I feel about this, but that's how I operate as well. But so I love your formula, and I think that's the biggest and the strongest part. If you can get beyond that and make people see what it is,
you can transform, man. You can really transform.
It will change their mindset. It will change their ability to see life. I mean, again, they'll be like, "Whoa, this is a whole new world now I'm living."
That's right.
Welcome to the real world.
Absolutely. I think there's two things really quick. If the listeners hearing us today really take seriously these two things, mindset is everything. It really is. There's no way around it. And then along with that, which is part of a mindset, is developing your emotional intelligence. If you do those two things, I guarantee you're going to live a fuller life. You're going to have greater experiences. You're going to have deeper, more intimate relationships. You're going to be more resilient. But you know what? You got to do something intentional about it. It doesn't happen by osmosis, which is what, you said too. So I'm with you, man, all the way.
I love it. Well, listen, so I know we've exceeded the hour, but it's just so powerful discussion. I mean, I could spend another hour easy having fun here. So let's talk about your services. Now, I know you do this work, and you're helping people. Is this only local folks that you have to be one-on-one, or you can do remote, with people and guide them and coach and mentor? How does that work?
Yeah, actually, the speaking and the coaching I do wherever. I travel. I do virtually. So there's some corporate talks that I do to encourage people and fire people up, and it's a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today, leadership stuff as well. But then the coaching, it can be one-on-one. I love in person. I think we all love that one-on-one connection. Like you and I right now, we'd probably go run through a wall right now if we were actually together, right? So I love that. But the reality of it is we live in a world now where the cool part about the virtual thing is I'm helping people all over the globe now. I've got a talk coming up where we're going to have literally 100 people I can't name the company, but it's a big global company from all over the world in this talk. That's freaking amazing. So I love the virtual, and I do virtual, but totally love the in-person stuff too.
All right. Well, that's great, because we do want people to know that they have the ability to access you worldwide, and you do have powerful stuff that you can bring to them. And again, you mentioned corporate, which means that there's a lot of that can happen. Some companies do spend and invest in coaching and mentoring to their staff to make them better, and not everybody does that. But again, we would encourage people that if they're leaders out there watching and listening, you might want to spend some time and some money, and you're going to invest that in your folks, and you're probably going to get more out of them, and they'll appreciate you more. And so that's an important
question.
piece.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's an important. And now the book is Big, Bold, Brave.
Yeah, Big, Bold, Brave, How to Live Courageously in a Risky World. The easiest way is just to go to Amazon. I mean, it's available everywhere books are sold. But if you go to Amazon, easy to find, and that's probably the simplest way, especially for those who are listening that are around the globe.
All right. Well, here's the thing. So I will have the actual link to your website on the job description, on the show's description, description, and also the links to where they can get the book. And also they can click literally on your picture and go right to your site and hopefully connect with you directly. And so they can, start the engagement with you there. All right. So I think we're coming to the end of the show here, but I know we've covered a lot of things, but what would be like maybe one or two elements you want to share and leave people with thoughts that you want to leave them with today?
I want to leave your listeners with just a last word of encouragement. I actually stumbled onto saying this. I was talking to a guy. He asked me a question. I'd never said it this way before. And after it came out of my mouth, I'm like, man, I really believe that. And that is, and you'll see it on my website if you go there. I believe three things about every human being. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your faith is. I believe every human being was created to be courageous. I think it's already in you. You may need some help digging it out. You may need a circumstance to put a demand on it, but you were created to be courageous. I also believe that you were created with a creative genius. Now, that's a whole other talk. I really actually believe I can prove that scientifically and biblically, but you were created with a creative genius. The people who are listening right now, there is something in you that no one else has. And there's a great chance that you don't even think you're creative because you're so good at it. It comes so natural that you don't even think it's a thing, right? But I believe that. So cultivate it. And then the third thing is I believe we were created to be compassionate. And I just want to encourage everybody out there, man, do something great. Do something great. Build $1 billion, build $1 trillion business. Help a lot of people, but don't ever forget where you came from. And wherever you have a chance, man, be compassionate and help someone else. That's what I believe really makes for a full life.
And I didn't do that, man. That's a tough comeback. Clint, thank you so much for a great show. A lot of good insights here and fire really energy stuff that people can take to the bank and just apply live. And they can do more by reaching out to you. So thank you so much, Clint, for being on the show. You're welcome. My pleasure. And so, folks, there you have it. Hope that today's session is just going to get you so pumped. It's not funny. So let's get excited. Let's get encouraged. Let's get brave, big, bold, and brave. And in the memory of Gabrielle here. So, awesome. Please, yeah. And so that's it. For me today, I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking again, different show, different guest, another topic. Bye for now.